This video will talk a little bit about what a color wheel is. We're not going to get too much into detail about color theory, but I do think it's helpful just to have some real basics. So, and also just to familiarize yourself with mixing colors, because some of us haven't painted, maybe since we were little kids. So it's just to kind of get warmed up again for those of you who have not painted in a long time. And it's also helpful to learn a little bit about the color wheel, because it can help us understand how color can change the meaning or the feeling of an artwork. So this is super basic. Don't get too worried about it. As always, the purpose of these exercises are really to explore the materials and how they look, explore the sensory qualities of them and how they can be applied to paper or other surfaces. So as you'll hear me throughout the semester, there's a balance between experimentation and really having fun, and then also learning some skills too, and learning some techniques. So if you are in Art 119, my Processes and Structures class, you have this textbook, the complete book of mixed media art. And if you check out pages 16 through 19, there'll be a lot of information about color. If you are in my Imagination and Creativity for Young Children class, this is your textbook. And chapter 6 goes into the elements of art, and there's a whole section here on color. So you can always refer back to this chapter too. This is page 124, 125. So what I'd like you to do then for your color wheel, you can choose. You can use watercolors. Again, if you don't have watercolors at home, even Giant will sell a simple plastic palette like this. You can use crayons or also oil pastels, which are a little like greasier than your standard crayon. You can use colored pencils also, or acrylic paints, or even if you don't have paints at home, I would say just grabbing some really inexpensive paints for our class. You can get very small, this is 2 ounces of craft paint from Michaels. This is a Crayola, kids washable paint or tempera paint. You don't have to spend a lot of money on paints. Those of you who are in Processes and Structures, you'll have an art kit with some supplies and paints. So you can really choose which one you would like to use for this project. So for the color wheel, I have my sample here for you. For the color wheel then, what I'd like you to do, again, check out those sections in the textbooks that I just showed you, and create a wheel. So it can be like the one I have here. It can be something like this, which is more like, spokes of a wheel coming out. It might even, if you're using watercolors, it might even look something like this, right? So a lot more, messier, if you will, if you're using watercolors. So this is just one version of many. And what you'll do then is define the categorizations of color, and they are on the handout, which is on Canvas. The first group of colors I'd like you to identify are primary colors, which are yellow, red, and blue. And you can see I have this triangle which indicate primary colors. And then play around with your colors. If you're using crayons, you can just simply overlap colors, or you can find your orange, for instance, and create secondary colors. And they are made by mixing two primary colors in equal amounts. So if we were to mix yellow and red, two primary colors, we'd get orange, a secondary color. If we mix yellow and blue together in equal amounts, we'd get green. And then finally, if we mix red and blue together, we'd get purple, which is a secondary color. And then we have what's called as tertiary or intermediate, it's sometimes called. And that's made by mixing a primary color with its secondary color that's right next to it, and we get tertiary. So if you pick another primary color like yellow, and we pick the secondary color that's right next to it, this green, if we mix the primary with adjacent secondary color, we would get the tertiary color. So have fun, playing with these kind of theories of how paint colors work together, and what happens too if you put too much, if you put more yellow than green, for instance, what happens. And then finally, I also want you to define complementary colors, which are simply colors opposite each other on the color wheel. So the complement of yellow is purple. The complement of red is green, for instance. And then warm and cool colors. I put this line here down the kind of the sections which indicate which are cool colors, which are colors that tend to have more blue in them, versus warm colors which have more yellow and red in them. Again, one could argue that this green here is a bit of a warm color, right? And then this purple here is kind of a cool color. So all of this is a little, it's not an absolute science, but that gives a general sense of warm colors are reds, oranges, yellows. Cool colors are greens, blues, and purples. So again, you can use any materials that you'd like, Tri-Paints, or if you only have crayons and colored pencils, certainly you can do it that way too. Okay, thank you.